Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. You can see underneath the title there, winner of the Pulitzer Prize. Sometimes this can be intimidating to people. They see a prize, Man Booker, Pulitzer, Nobel Prize, and they think, oh, this has to be good. I have to like this. And sure, there's pressure there. And I think people who recently read this book with me felt that pressure. They thought it's a Pulitzer Prize winner, I should like it. But that didn't change the fact that they didn't like the book. I was the only person in our group of friends that enjoyed reading this. And I think part of it was the absurdity of the text. I was open to reading it not only because there was a Pulitzer Prize, but there was a foreword by Walker Percy. Walker Percy is one of my favorite American novelists, and so I thought, well, if Walker Percy likes it, then I will probably like it. So I had a couple positive things going in, but I liked the text from almost the beginning. It was absurd, absolutely, but for me, the absurdity is a draw. I talk and think about so many serious things in my life that absurdity and comedy is something I value. And after 20 minutes of my eyebrows arching, occasional moments of smiling, so I'm not to laugh out loud laughter yet. I just relaxed and let myself fall into the novel. About halfway through, I realized that this was effectively an updated Don Quixote, using New Orleans as the backdrop. And I think if you were familiar with New Orleans, you would get even more out of this. He really uses New Orleans as a character, and the geography of it has a really meaningful background as well as the neighborhoods. So that in relation to the various parts of Spain that the man of La Mancha was visiting. So it's absurd, yes, but it's also terribly incisive as well. It's pointing to the problems we have in our cities when we don't create communities with our neighbors, when we don't know our neighbors, to the monsters that are created by parents who overly dote on their children. The main character is one of these, Ignatius. You have greedy capitalists who are willing to let their workers put out substandard products and not care about their personal or professional development. We also see an unwillingness to take care of the elderly, the vulnerable in our society. We'd rather have comfortable fictions about what people are doing or how they are doing. Degenerate entertainment that permeates a society. This feeds back to the children and creates a viciousness in the population. So this book was written decades ago, but it reads like it was written today because it so accurately talks about the state of our society. So I think that you can still, because of that, I think you can still get this book without the Don Quixote frame if you haven't read Don Quixote, even if you're unfamiliar with the themes of Don Quixote. As an aside, if you haven't, Don Quixote should be on your list. You should read that book. But I also would pitch it as potentially a Pluto in your solar system, so not quite a planet, something that's somewhere out there that it's a book that you would not normally read, but challenge yourself and it might be something you would actually enjoy. It has a fascinating ending, and I think it pointed to a sequel that never came. There's tragic circumstances related to the author, and interesting, there's a bit of relation between the main character of this novel and the author of the book in regards to his mother, so the mother of the character and the mother of the author, and how this book came to be published. I'll leave that to you to go and look and learn on your own. And the inability, it seems, to have brought this material to the big screen, it's had its own failures. But I just wanted to read a little bit to you, just having given that introduction. I want to read some of the text to you so you can get a sense of the flavor and style of writing. As I said, I think it really is too bad that this is the only text that we have from him. So so we have various letters that Ignatius writes, either in his diary or correspondence to other people. Here, he's at a job, and what normally would be a prank, I think, to normal people, he then does this for real and takes it way too far. He's writing to one of the suppliers of the business that he just got a job at 2 days before. In the office, he writes. So he gives the address: Abelman's Dry Goods, Kansas City, Missouri, USA. Dear I. Abelman, Mongoloid, Esquire. We have received via post your absurd comments about our trousers, the comments revealing, as they did, your total lack of contact with reality. Were you more aware, you would know or realize by now that the offending trousers were dispatched to you with our full knowledge that they were inadequate so far as length was concerned. Why? You are, in your incomprehensible babble, unable to assimilate stimulating concepts of commerce into your retarded and blighted worldview. The trousers were sent to you, one, as a means of testing your initiative. A clever, wide-awake business concern should be able to make three-quarter length trousers a byword of masculine fashion. Your advertising and merchandising programs are obviously faulty. And two, as a means of testing your ability to meet the standards requisite in the distributor of our quality product. Our loyal and dependable outlets can vend any trouser bearing the Levi label, no matter how abominable their design and construction. You are apparently a faithless people. We do not wish to be bothered in the future by such tedious complaints. Please confine your correspondence to orders only. We are a busy and dynamic organization whose mission needless effrontery and harassment can only hinder. If you molest us again, sir, you may feel the sting of the lash across your pitiful shoulders. Yours in anger, Gus Levy, President. So he forges this letter. And I understand that out of context it may not seem as funny to you, but overall, his ability to slip in and out of this character and you understanding who he is, I think the ending points to the fact that he's been playing a character somewhat throughout the story, but you won't get that unless you read the text. So I'm going to continue to try to give you some flavor of what we're hearing. So this is his mother, Angelo, Ignatius's mother, the main character. Angelo's got him a hard road to travel, Mrs. Riley said absently. She was thinking of the Peace to Men of Goodwill sign that Ignatius had tacked to the front of their house after he had come home from work. Miss Annie had immediately started an inquisition about that as soon as it had appeared, screaming questions through her shutters. What you think about someone wants peace, Claude? That sounds like a communist to me. Mrs. Riley's worst fears were realized. And the way he's spelling it, there's a lot of dialect that is spelled out here. So he spells it C-O-M-M-U-N-I-S-S, communist. It sounds like a communist to me. There's more here. And this is a relation, a friend of Ignatius's mother called Santa. Irene, Santa said angrily, you all the time thinking of that boy and with all the trouble he's giving you. You better wake up, babe. If you had any sense, you would have had that boy locked away at Charity Hospital a long time ago. They'd turn a hose on him. They'd stick a electric socket in that boy. They'd show that Ignatius. They'd make him behave himself. Yeah? Mrs. Riley asked with interest. How much that cost? It's all for free, Irene. Socialized medicine, Mr. Robichaud observed. They probably got communists and fellow travelers working in that place. They got nuns operating the place, Claude. Lord, where are you all the time getting this communist stuff from? Maybe them sisters been fooled, Mr. Robichaud said. Ain't that awful, Mrs. Riley said sadly. Them poor sisters operating for a bunch of communists. So here, I think a very insightful caricature into the American idea of charity, that the only way that you'd help someone who is insane or needs help or on the spectrum is if you're a bunch of communists. Because nobody would do something out of love and charity for their fellow man, which, of course, nuns and brothers have been doing for not just centuries, but millennia. So this is an excerpt of Ignatius writing a chronicle of being a working man. But he's taking himself seriously, or at least it appears to be that here. A debate between pragmatism and morality rages in my brain. Is the glorious end peace worth the awesome means degeneracy? Like two figures in the medieval morality play, pragmatism and morality spar in the boxing ring of my brain. I cannot await the outcome of their furious debate. I am too obsessed with peace. If any perceptive film producers are interested in buying the movie rights to this journal, I might here make a note on the filming of this debate. A musical saw would provide excellent background accompaniment, and the hero's eyeball may be superimposed upon the debate scene in a most symbolic manner. Certainly some attractive new discovery could be found in a drugstore or a motel, or in whatever den people are discovered to play the working boy. The film may be made in Spain, Italy, or some other interesting land where the cast may wish to see, such as North America. Sorry, those of you who are interested in the latest bleak Frankfurter news will find none. My mind is too preoccupied with the magnificence of this design. Now I must communicate with M. Minkoff and make some jottings for my lecture at the kickoff rally. So M. Minkoff is a recurring character who we don't actually get to meet until the very, very end of the book. Social note. My truant mother is gone again, which is really rather fortunate. Her vigorous assaults and blistering attacks against my being are negatively affecting my valve. So he keeps referring to his valve, but it's something having to do with his feeling, his chi, you could say. She said that she was going to attend a crowning of the May Queen at some church, but since it isn't May, I tend to doubt her veracity. The sophisticated comedy featuring my #1 female film favorite is opening at a downtown palace momentarily. Somehow I must be there on opening day. I can only imagine the film's latest horrors, its flaunting of vulgarity in the face of theology and geometry, taste and decency. I do not understand this compulsion of mine for seeing movies. It almost seems as if movies are in my blood. Health note. My stomach is getting out of bounds. The seams of my vendor's smock are creaking ominously. Until later, Tab, your pacifist working boy. If you're enjoying this content, please consider hitting like or subscribe. And get this content out to other people who might enjoy book reviews or conversations about cancelable things. Do you think that I have a problem, Ignatius bellowed? The only problem that those people have anyway is that they don't like new cars and hairsprays. That's why they are put away. They make the other members of the society fearful. Every asylum in this nation is filled with poor souls who simply cannot stand lanolin, cellophane, plastic, television, and subdivisions. This last excerpt I'm going to read is it's a rather long one. It comes towards the very end of the book, and it's interesting because it's very revelatory about the character. And you'll have these situations. I'm thinking particularly of Sweet Francaise. If you haven't read that, I'll put a link in the description as well as a card. There's a scene in Sweet Francaise in which Nemirovsky describes a conversation had between these two adults through the eyes and ears and senses of a 9-year-old girl. And it is beautiful and fascinating, and it's one of the enduring moments of that novel for me. I wouldn't say that this is an enduring moment of the novel, but it's certainly a technique I very rarely see in literature, which is a major point of revelation about the character is given, you could say, inches away from the end of the book, in which you'd say to yourself, if I had known that earlier, I would have looked at things completely differently. And spoiler alert, so if you're planning to read this, if I've encouraged you to read this, you might pause it here and skip ahead however many minutes until I'm finished reading this. But when it dawns on you, you can see the technique of the author that he wanted you to find this out later because it would have changed your perception from the beginning. So in a sense, it's a pleasant surprise, a shocking surprise. So this is Gus Levy. Remember earlier we'd heard part of the letter, not part of the letter, the whole letter in which Ignatius had forged. He had forged a letter, signed it as Gus Levy, and basically started the process of a lawsuit. Levy is trying now to track down Ignatius. It's the end of the book and try to figure this out and get Ignatius to admit that he's the one who forged the letter so that the lawsuit will go away. And he comes to Ignatius's house, and he's talking to the neighbor. I'm Gus Levy. He used to work for me. Yeah? You don't say. That crazy Ignatius was sure proud of that job he had at that place. I used to hear him telling his mama how he was really making good. Yeah, he made good. A few weeks and he was fired. Well, if he worked for you, you really know him good. Had that poor Riley kook really been proud of Levy Pants? He had always said that he was. That was one good sign of his insanity. Tell me, hasn't he been in trouble with the police? Doesn't he have some kind of police record? His mama had a policeman coming around here. A regular undercover agent, but not that Ignatius. For one thing, his mama likes her little nip. I don't see her drunk much lately, but for a while there, she was really going good. One day, I look out in the backyard and she had herself all tangled up in a wet sheet hanging off the line. Mister, it's already taken 10 years off my life living next to them people. Noise, banjos and trumpets and screaming and hollering in the TV. Them Rileys ought to go move out in the country somewheres on a farm. Every day I got to take 6, 7 aspirin. Miss Annie reached inside the neckline of her house dress to find some strap that had slipped out from under her shoulder. Let me tell you something. I got to be fair. That Ignatius was okay until that big dog of his died. He had this big dog used to bark right under my window. That's when my nerves first started to go. Then the dog dies. Well, I think now maybe I'll get me some peace and quiet. But no. Ignatius has got the dog laid out in his mama's front parlor with some flowers stuck in its paw. That's when him and his mama first started all that fighting. To tell you the truth, I think that's when she started drinking. So Ignatius goes over to the priest and asks him to come say something over the dog. Ignatius was planning on some kind of funeral, you know? The priest says no, of course, and I think that's when Ignatius left the church. So big Ignatius puts on his own funeral. A big fat high school boy ought to know better. You see that cross? Mr. Levy looked hopelessly at the rotting Celtic cross in the front yard. That's where it all happened. He had about 24 little kids standing around in that yard watching him. And Ignatius had on a big cape like Superman, and there was candles burning all over. The whole time his mama was screaming out the front door for him to throw the dog in the garbage can and get in the house. Well, that's when things started going bad around here. Then Ignatius was at college for about 10 years. His mama almost went broke. She even had to sell the piano they had. Well, I didn't mind that. You ought to see this girl he picks up at college. I say to myself, well, good. Maybe that Ignatius is going to get married and move out. Was I wrong? All they done is sit in his room. It seems like every night she and him was putting on a regular hootenanny. Things I used to hear through my window. It was awful. I went on aspirins 24 hours a day. Well, that girl done left. I can't blame her. She must have been funny to hang around with him anyways. Miss Annie reached in the opposite direction for another strap. Of all the houses in the city, how come I had to move in here? Tell me that. Mr. Levy could think of no reason for her having moved to this particular location, but the Ignatius Riley story had made him depressed, and he wished he were away from Constantinople Street. So, as I said, Confederacy of Dunces, John Kennedy Toole, not necessarily going to be on everyone's radar. This was recommended to me, I think, some years ago. Probably, again, Tim Ferriss. You've heard this from me before. He has unusual recommendations, and they've almost always worked out. So one of them, which I only recently got to, was the three-body problem, which I'll put a link to in the description as well as a card. Quite different from this as well. So if you'd like to get a copy of this book, there's a link in the description. That's one of the ways that you can support this channel. Another way you can do so, I've already talked about, hit the like button, subscribe, share, hype, whatever that does. Get this out to more people. If you'd like to thank me for this presentation, there's links to PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee below. If you'd like to thank me on an ongoing basis and get early access to videos like this one, there's links to Patreon and YouTube membership. And if you'd like to nominate a book for the future, my Amazon wish list is below. You can browse through. You'll probably see books on Palestine. Those are for my Palestine bookshelf channel. If you'd like to go check that out, see the work we're doing there, feel free. But if it's not on Palestine, it's for this channel. Buy it, send it my way, and I'll do my best to review it in a timely manner. Until next time, enjoy your reading.